My name is Daniel Gallardo. I'm the founder of Tenkara USA. Today I want to share with you a couple of the basic things about Tenkara fly fishing, particularly the knots. I'm going to show you how to connect your line to the tip of the rod, tippet to line, fly to tippet, as well as how to use the line holders. Just a reminder, one thing that I always like to share with people is that this tips here, the tips of the rods are really strong. I can almost bend it in half. Don't do this at home, by the way. However, they could snap very easily right here, and most of the breakages occur when somebody's tying a knot to the tip of the rod and they accidentally pull this too hard and they snap it. So anytime you're setting your line up, put this hard tip inside, maybe put a finger on the top of the rod and only expose this lily braided material as you do your knot. That'll prevent almost every single breakage that we see. So connecting your level line to your rod tip is very easy. The end of your rod here doesn't have a loop like most people are used to on a Western fly rod. All that we have here is the rod tip, which is this very fine tip, and what we call the lilian, which is this braided material. The name comes from what used to be called lily yarn, essentially because it's a hollow braided material. It kind of looks like a lily flower. The main thing to keep in mind here is that the rod tips, they can flex a lot and they're really strong, but they could snap easily if you're not very careful in this part of the process. Most of our breakages are caused by when people are tying their knot and they snap the tip because they pull it hard and they snap the little tip right there. The number one thing that I like to suggest to people is put the hard tip of the rod inside, only expose this soft braided material called the lilian. Now with your level line, you're just going to make one very simple notch. It's essentially a slip notch. It's a one overhand slip notch. All I do here is make a loop, one overhand notch. This is it. And then I expose the rod tip material that we call the lilian. Put a finger right there to prevent it from coming out. Pass the lilian through the loop that I just formed 2 times. 1, 2. Oh. That's it. If you want to be redundant, go ahead and do it 3 times even. And then all we do is slide that and give it a firm pull. If the knot was not tied properly, it's going to slide right away. So that's it. And then once you've done that, you extend the rod tip and pull out all the segments in order. When you're going home, all you're doing here is you collapse the rod back in, put the tip inside, same process, put your finger right there to keep it from coming out and snapping, and pull this tag end like that. And then you just pull it out, and next time you can just do the knot again. So there's no need for a permanent loop of any sort. What some people have done is they'll tie a little stopper notch. Just an overhand notch is okay, or a figure eight if you want to. Now you have a stopper, and then with the line you do the same thing that we just did. You just make an overhand slip notch. So you have the slip notch here. If anything were to slide, this will stop it, but I think that's just a little bit of unnecessary redundancy. As long as you do a little bit of testing before you start using your line, it'll be okay. But here, it's an option anyways. That's it. So I want to cover how to tie your tippet to level line. It's a very simple notch, but the one that is a little bit unknown to a lot of people. So at the end of your level line, you don't have to make any type of loop, any permanent loop or anything like that. All you do here is you make a stopper knot. And I usually use the figure eight, like that. Just close it and leave a little bit of a tag. I try to minimize my tag here. I don't like clipping the end of my line, so I just push it forward, leave a little bit of a tag in there. With your tippet, you make a slip knot. The way I do it is I make a loop, 2 loops at the base of that. 1, 2. Just 1 loop here, 2 loops here, and then from the top you get the tippet to go through both of those little loops. And then you pull it tight. And this is essentially a sliding knot. Now all you do is the loop that you just created, the sliding loop that you created here with your tippet, pass it over the level line, tighten it, and tighten it against it. And then all you do is you clip a little bit of your tippet. I usually leave about 1/4 inch of a tag on both of them, but I'm not going to clip it here. But this is all you do, and then this line here, the main level line, whatever length you want. Tippet, I normally use about 4 feet of tippet, and that's depending on the situation, between 3 and 6 feet. The traditional line, one of the cool things about it is that it's a very simple knot. At the end of your traditional line, we send our lines with a transition loop. Essentially, it's a soft braided braid line material. And all this is used for is to make a girth hitch and not slide out. So first thing you do, make a girth hitch. To do that, you just essentially have the loop here, bend this in half, pass it through. That's a girth hitch, so you can tighten that against anything. Now at the end of your rod tip, on what we call the Lillian material, this part here, the soft braided tip of the rod, normally we try to sand all of our rods with a little stopper notch. If yours doesn't have it, all you have to do is make a little overhand knot, and that's going to stay there. Now, first of all, with your traditional line, make a girth hitch like that. You expose the soft braided material, put the hard tip inside and put a finger there so it doesn't accidentally snap. And then all you do is just slide the girth hitch over, I'll do that again, slide the girth hitch over the red braided material, grab the tip and tighten it. And then once you've tightened it, slide it against the stopper. And that's a very secure connection right there. To remove it, all you're going to be doing, put the hard tip inside, put a finger there, hold the tip of the braided material, the Lillian, and pull the tag end of your traditional line. And that's it. Now on the other end of your traditional line, it's a very simple loop-to-loop connection. So we send our traditional lines with what we call the extender. This segment here is a 3x tippet material with a loop at the end. The only reason that we send it with this out, connected to the line already, is so that we can prevent accidental clippage of the main line. So if you were, people are used to making an improved clinch or something to connect to the main line, and if you were to accidentally clip this, the entire line is going to come unraveled. So we send our lines with an extender tippet material. It is a good idea to replace it, but if you're comfortable with it, you can make a loop-to-loop directly to the tip of the line. Otherwise, and in both cases, just to make a loop-to-loop connection, all you have to do is make a loop at the end of your tippet, make a small loop, but just look for a perfection loop. Pass this line tag between the 2 loops that you formed. So essentially just passing in between and pulling the end. But look up illustrations maybe for perfection loops. So that's a way, all you have to do is make a loop here. And I'll cut the tag. I don't really mind leaving a little bit of a tag. And to the end of your line, you have that 1 loop already formed. I have this loop that I just tied. I'll pass it over like that. And then I pass essentially the end of my line through the loop on the line here. And just pass the whole thing through. And I'm just getting the knot to go through here. And all you have here is just a loop-to-loop connection, and you tighten it. That's it. So it's a loop-to-loop, and the same thing, exact same thing would be done right here. Now to connect your tippet to your fly, there's a lot of different knots that can be used. I personally am very used to using an improved clinch. That's just because I grew up using that and my muscle memory is so used to it. Another knot that is really good is the Davy knot. It's one of the simplest knots that there are, and if you want to learn that, go for it. I'm gonna just show you the improved clinch, which is one that a lot of times I tend to ask people what they use for knots connecting tippet to fly, and that's one that is, for what I've seen, the most cited one. So you're gonna go through the eye of the hook like that, go around 6 or 7 times, 6, go through the little loop that you formed in the beginning, and again, illustrations are probably the easiest way to see this. And then go through the second loop that you formed. And normally when you tie any knots like this, especially with tippet, it's a good idea to put a little bit of spittle in there. The spit will prevent friction burns on the tippet, which weaken it, or just go ahead and do it slowly and firmly. And that's your knot right there. And then you just cut the tag end. One of the cool things about the Davy knot as well, so I'd encourage you to look it up, is that it's easy to get the tag end very small. But that's it, right there. Now the last thing that I'm going to cover here is the line holders that we sell. This is the only accessory that I really like to recommend to people for use with Tenkara. There's different ways of managing the line, but this is by far the best line management system I have found. Very ubiquitous in Japan. A lot of Tenkara anglers like it because you can have multiple spools of line. Very quick to wind the line around it, and I'm going to show you what I do. So when you get these line holders, you can put your hook at any of the notches in there. Your line is going to come, through the top here and pass through one of the notches. The main thing that I like to tell people, hook a finger inside the line holder and maybe press with this thumb right here, so the spool stays still, and your other hand is going to wind the line around it. It's very hard to do if you try to start spinning the rod, the line holder, or if you put your fingers here, that becomes very difficult. So hold it still, wind the line around it. And if you can leave the rod, the line connected to the rod, but if not, all you have to do here is, let's say you're going home, you put your line between the foam and the plastic, and that locks it in place. But let's say you were, to just move from one spot to another on a stream, and you have your line already attached. You'd wind the line, around the spool. Leave about maybe a foot of line. So again, pressing this, the line holder facing down. That way the line is still connected to the tip of the rod. Notice that the tip of the rod is actually inside, just the braided material is coming out. The line is parallel to the rod, inside the spool, and connected right there. So when you get to the next spot that you want to fish, all you have to do is pull the line holder out and unwind the line around from the line holder.